Afternoon, everyone. I'm Andy, and welcome to this week's Team Kentucky Update. First, we're going to provide an update on the flooding that's hit different parts of Kentucky, especially Western Kentucky, and then move into some very good economic development news, some wonderful grants that are going to help people that are doing God's work do that much more, along with a couple other pieces of news this week. Let's start with the fact that yesterday I officially declared a state of emergency due to the impacts of widespread flooding. This weather event impacted multiple areas across the Commonwealth with significant damage in Mayfield and in and around Western Kentucky. I also activated the state's price gouging laws to protect families from grossly overpriced goods and services no one should be taken advantage of in a time of need. Thankfully, there have been no fatalities. Last night, water started to recede and teams have begun damage assessments. Here's a breakdown. We've had 0 requests for state assistance thus far. It means all these local first responders are doing a heck of a job. We have 5 KYEM, that's Kentucky Emergency Management, area managers mobilized to Western Kentucky. To date, we have no reported fatalities, no reported missing persons. There have been multiple rescues in multiple counties. There have been several home evacuations, and there are multiple road closures. Good news on the power front. As of 8:30 this morning, only 505 outages. That is down from a maximum 19,433 at one point. So thank you to our utilities for the great work and quick work that you've done. Emergency declarations. I signed a state declaration of emergency yesterday. Thus far, we have had 5 counties declare an emergency: Carlisle, Graves, Hickman, Lee, and Fulton. We also have 5 cities that have declared emergencies: Arlington, Bardwell, Clinton, Cumberland, and Mayfield. Now, we are not fully out of the woods yet. Multiple rounds of showers and thunderstorms are expected in the region throughout today and through tonight. The main impacts will be damaging winds, lightning, and unfortunately more heavy rainfall. In areas that were impacted this week, flash flooding is a concern. Please stay alert, avoid high water, be careful. We've gotten through this thus far without losing a single life, and we don't want to lose even just one person. So through tonight, and then we think we'll be through the worst of it. Everybody out there, please be careful. Remember, we can repair a home, we can replace a car, we can ultimately replace stuff, but we can't replace people. So be careful. All right, now moving to some very exciting news about our booming economy. Last week, I announced the largest general fund revenue surplus ever of $1.4 billion. Now, the final accounting records for the spending side of the budget are complete. Our general fund budget surplus at the end of fiscal year 2023 is more than $1.55 billion. That is the largest general fund surplus, the largest budget surplus in Kentucky's history. This is also the 3rd year in a row that Kentucky's general fund budget surplus has exceeded $1 billion. Nearly all of the $1.55 billion surplus will go into Kentucky's rainy day fund. That'll bring the balance of that fund to $3.7 billion, the largest rainy day fund balance ever in our history. That balance was $129 million when I took office. That means we've had a 2,700% increase in funds going in to that rainy day fund. The road fund ended the year with a $55.5 million surplus. That's due to a revenue surplus of $32.3 million and lower spending. The road fund surplus goes into the biennial highway construction program. Our financial house is in order, and we have been fiscally responsible. With more money coming in, we will keep our economy booming and we will make smart decisions. In the weeks and months ahead, I'll be laying out my plan on how to use some of these one-time dollars, especially in areas like infrastructure, continuing our clean drinking water program, ways that we can use it to leverage dollars to expand broadband. When we look at a healthy, recurring general fund balance that we'll be looking at going forward. It's clear that we can more than afford the large teacher raises that are desperately needed to keep us competitive with other states. We'll be laying those out in the weeks to come. That'll be our blueprint on how we can continue on this path to prosperity and make sure that no one is left out. Today, we're also announcing that we have added and filled more jobs to our booming economy. The new June 2023 State Labor Market Report was just published this morning, and we had an increase of 6,400 additional jobs filled, bringing us to 2,015,600 filled jobs in June, the largest amount we've ever had. Kentucky's non-farm employment was up to 61,100 jobs, or 3.1% up compared to June of last year. That means we now have a new record of nearly 60,000 more jobs filled than before the pandemic. We haven't just gotten back up. We are charging ahead. We have always talked about building a better Kentucky for our families, and we're taking the steps to do it. We have a red-hot economy with the most ever jobs filled. We've secured record upon record of budget surpluses and the largest rainy day fund ever. We're coming off the two best years we've ever had for economic development, and we're intent on making 2023 the third best year we've ever had. We've also lowered income taxes and property tax rates. We're going to continue to work harder. This is our time. We need to grab this prosperity. We cannot fumble this potential. We have to keep moving forward. So once again, I have some good news on the economic development front to share with you today. Yesterday, we highlighted continued growth in Kentucky's signature bourbon and spirits industry as Pennyroyal Barrel Company, a bourbon incubator for third-party brands, plans to locate a new facility in Adair County. The project includes an $8.52 million investment, creating 10 full-time jobs. PBC's entire 40-acre campus in Columbia will be built with its independent brand's growth in mind. Brand partners will have facilities for warehousing, blending and bottling, meeting and public event space, as well as private event space. The campus will include a state-of-the-art blending and bottling facility, rickhouses, a storefront to purchase each brand's product and apparel, a wooded amphitheater with walking paths, and several other features. Expanding the bourbon sector into counties that have not previously seen growth in this area is a huge accomplishment for the Commonwealth. And I want to thank Pennyroyal leadership for their commitment to bringing it to Adair County. I'd now like to introduce, we've got two folks here today from Pennyroyal, Ross Hutchinson and Daniel Griffith. They are co-founders of PBC. We are excited that you are investing in Kentucky, helping us expand this bourbon industry. Really excited for Adair County. So thank you all. All yours.
First, on behalf of myself and my partner, Daniel Griffith, I'd like to thank Governor Beshear. And it's a special opportunity for me to be here today as a Kentuckian. Second, I'd like to thank the folks on behalf of the state and the folks in Adair County who have helped Pennyroyal get to this point. Understand we've got a lot of work to do, and hopefully we have some good times along the way. But I feel like it's important to commend the local and state government. They have approached their job with such skill and such joy. It's been a wonderful experience. The state of Kentucky's put a wonderful atmosphere together to encourage business and business development. So again, thank you for that. Now, as for our project, Daniel and I are excited to begin construction, and we hope to be rolling that out as quickly as possible and begin operations in fall of 2024. And as has been discussed, we wanted to bring a unique concept to the area. We wanted to be a missing piece to the bigger bourbon industry puzzle. While Adair County is less than an hour from the traditional bourbon trail, it's a wonderful central location. 2 hours from Louisville, 2 hours from Lexington, and 2 hours from Nashville. But we knew, being in a non-traditional location, we had to do something a little non-traditional. And that's the reason we sat down and we thought, what can we do that is different? What is not out there currently? And we landed on this whiskey incubation concept. And through this vehicle, it's our hope that the Pennyroyal will serve as an entry point for startup brands and a place where small to medium-sized brands can thrive. Now, I'm not a smart man, but I can read a little bit. and I know how to work Google. And I'm pretty confident that our model, this whiskey incubator model, is the first of its kind, certainly in Kentucky. And I'm pretty confident it's the first of its kind, maybe anywhere in the world. I'm a little limited. But there's never been a facility like this in the whiskey industry that's sole focus is serving and showcasing third-party brands like this. We've certainly pulled from different ideas from different folks in the industry, and but our eye is towards how can we benefit our incubator partners. We want our clients to have all the resources of the big players without the risk of building a brick and mortar facility. We want them to have the opportunity to showcase their whiskeys, showcase their personalities, their people, create their own experiences. We hope to create a home for each of our clients, and in turn, a unique tourist experience where a guest can experience a number of different brands in their own unique ways in one location. Now, I know I'm long-winded, and I'll wrap it up, but I've had a number of folks ask why we're not trying to locate in somewhere historically associated with bourbon. And my answer is simple. Adair County's home. It's where I grew up, and I'm proud to bring a project back home. We're proud to expand bourbon tourism into parts of the state that have not historically had bourbon, and make that part of our local economy. Heck, Prohibition didn't even end in Adair County until about 7 years ago. And here we are. But just like aging a good whiskey, it's ready when it's ready, and Adair County's ready for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Taking a business home. Pretty special. Thank you all. Pretty special. Kentuckians bringing business to where they're from, having a special and unique opportunity to help their communities and bringing it to fruition. We believe that Pennyroyal will be very successful, and these numbers are just a start, but that they will foster other businesses throughout Kentucky, ensure that people can continue to get into the bourbon game. As you all know, bourbon had its best year in the history of Kentucky in terms of investment, over $2.1 billion invested in it last year. That beat the previous record by $500 million. And we had the most visitors on the Bourbon Trail that we have ever seen. Bourbon has now become, in many ways, the way people are introduced to Kentucky that have never been here and try our incredible product wherever they are in the world. So thank you to the Pennyroyal crew. Let's make sure we support this business. This week, we also highlighted a new addition within the state's healthcare industry. Lunai, the management service of Aurea Health, will establish its corporate headquarters. That's a big deal. And its first Kentucky location at the Western Kentucky University Innovation Campus. Aurea is a leading telehealth-first behavioral health company dedicated to revolutionizing healthcare delivery and ensuring access where it's needed the most. The company's investing $266,000 in creating 33 quality Kentucky jobs. The jobs will consist of a core team of 10 employees, contractors, and full-time staff to support ongoing operations as the company builds its portfolio of local partners and local clients. Aurea Health will also add Kentucky licensing for its current team of 50 therapists, psychiatrists, and psychologists to help increase access to care for Kentuckians immediately. I want to thank Lunai's leadership for believing in South Central Kentucky, and I look forward to seeing the company's future success in the Commonwealth. Finally, on Monday, we announced that 9 innovative Kentucky companies will receive over $1 million in state matching grants to support high-paying jobs and further the state's growing tech sector. The grants are part of the Commonwealth's nationally recognized Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Matching Funds program. It's a mouthful, but it's a good program that helps a lot of companies get off the ground and or grow. The funds will partly match $7.45 million in federal grants the businesses will collectively receive. To date, companies awarded through this program have created more than 730 good-paying jobs, 88% of which have annual salaries over $50,000. The 9 businesses listed on the screen and online in our news release were awarded matching funds using technology to advance multiple fields, from healthcare to lithium-ion battery technology to environmentally friendly hydrogen production. A few examples include Faradine. They're in Lexington. They're developing specialized mesh network communication devices for military use. Pascal Tags in Louisville. They're working on continued development and optimization of their chipless inventory tag, which will increase efficiency in our supply chain. It includes the core, which is moving from California to Kentucky. The company's technology system combats heat stress and heat illness by providing smart, active cooling to the user, coupled with hydration for athletics training and military use, something we can all appreciate right now with how hot it has been. I want to congratulate these companies on being awarded the SBIR STTR funds, and I look forward to seeing their amazing ideas move even forward. Okay, next, our Medicaid mobile crisis intervention. Here in Kentucky, we are committed to providing mental health care and addiction services. In fact, the state recently was ranked #1 in adult mental health care, according to Mental Health America. And today we're taking another step forward. Just a few minutes ago, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services announced their approval for expanded community-based mobile crisis services. These services will provide specialized support in times of need to more Kentuckians across the Commonwealth, from rural to urban communities, and even better, the services will be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're going to be further boosting community-based mobile crisis intervention services and behavioral health crisis services, and it's going to be transformative. We are truly addressing barriers to care, and we will be there for our people when they need help the most. Behavioral healthcare providers and other mobile crisis team experts will receive specialized training for this program. Training will cover de-escalation, crisis stabilization, and outpatient treatment referral. It'll help prevent overcrowding in our emergency departments, hospitalizations, and it'll decrease incarcerations. This expanded coverage is expected to take place in October. Counties are encouraged to apply for assistance to pay for implementing this service. Medicaid will award up to 24 applicants over 2 rounds of funding. Each grantee may receive up to a total of $625,000 through the grant period, and a second round of funding is anticipated to open in 2024. Questions may be emailed to Team Kentucky Medicaid at kymobilecrisis@ky.gov. Since taking office, I've worked tirelessly with local and state officials and so many people in the nonprofit and other sectors to fight the drug crisis in our Commonwealth, because we all know, folks, that we've lost to addiction, most of us several to many. Kentucky was one of only 8 states in the country to see a significant decrease in drug overdose deaths last year. And we currently have the largest number of corrections addiction treatment beds than we've ever had. Overall, treatment beds in the Commonwealth have grown by 50% since I became governor. That statistic about overdose deaths last year is the work of thousands of Kentuckians who are fighting every day to keep our neighbors and our friends alive. They're doing incredible work in some of the most difficult areas. To continue moving forward on this momentum, we recently awarded over $7.6 million in funding to expand treatment for pregnant and parenting women, increase access to recovery programs to help those in recovery find good-paying jobs that will put them on a path to long-term recovery. This drug crisis hurts everyone, especially our most vulnerable populations, our children, and we cannot allow this to continue, which is why it's so important that we all work together to reduce the stigma of asking for help. One great organization that has joined Team Kentucky in this mission, but's been doing it a long time, is the Chrysalis House. This organization is using the funding to enhance its residential treatment services for pregnant and parenting women by providing specialized medical staff who are available at all hours of the day. This is an organization I was proud to work with and provide some funding as Attorney General that my mom has worked with throughout the years. They truly do an incredible job. So with us today is Connie Neal, Assistant Director at Chrysalis House. We are proud of the work you're doing and would love for you to come and say a few words about that outstanding work. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Good to see you, Governor Beshear. Thank you. First, I want to start by thanking Governor Beshear and the entire administration, not only for your support of Chrysalis House, but also for your support of the treatment and recovery community as a whole in Kentucky. With this funding, it has allowed Chrysalis House to provide specialized medical services for pregnant and parenting women, including an addiction medicine specialist who's on our staff, a psychiatrist, and 4 nurses who are with us full time. We also provide allow the women to have access to specialized prenatal care for women suffering from SUD. We also provide mother dyad therapies and specialized services for children as well. The women who come to us are suffering from health disparities, stigma, many things that keep them from being able to seek and receive the treatment that they need. The funds from this grant allows Chrysalis House to serve women from all 120 counties and allows us to provide them with quality service and access. And so I just want to thank you. If anyone is interested in learning more about Chrysalis House or our services, you can find our website at www.chrysalishouse.org, or you can call our admissions line at 859-977-2525.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A wonderful organization that shows you that treatment works. We've got to continue to fund it. We've got to stand with our treatment community. And we've got to make sure that the vast majority of these opioid abatement dollars go to our treatment and recovery communities, go to law enforcement that are out there working to seize record amounts of fentanyl. We've got to do this the right way. Chrysalis House does it the right way. Now we have a video from Turning Point Recovery Community Center, which has built a van to meet individuals where they are on the road to recovery.
The idea of the van was to take what we have already at Turning Point, a very welcoming environment, and take it to the streets. Take it to the 9 most western counties of western Kentucky. Every time we pulled up, they felt comfort knowing that the person inside is there to help them out. The person inside that van who's getting ready to step out is there to support them no matter where they are on their journey. We can take our efforts, our fight to their doorstep and make sure that they have the supports that they need, just like I once needed, to get to that next level of care.
I hope to see 100,000 miles on this van this year. We hope to introduce people to our services that have never been able to access them before for whatever reason, transportation or other barriers. I wanted to bring treatment services to people who have never had the option to access those treatment services before. I want to do everything I can, everything that we can is for Rivers Behavioral Health and Turning Point to help with the addiction crisis.
This van was designed, thankfully, to a grant that we received from the state of Kentucky to help us provide mobile, rural access to the folks in western Kentucky, provide them with recovery supports, access to treatment, harm reduction, exchange programs. And if we pull up in this van and they see that, that is our goal, to provide that level of care.
Thank you to everybody that's out there doing God's work. Thank you for saving our family members, our friends, our neighbors. Please keep it up. All right, next week is the 1-year anniversary of the deadly floods that swept through eastern Kentucky. It took place at the end of July. Days of unrelenting, record-breaking, previously unimaginable amounts of rain fell on eastern Kentucky communities, resulting in the deadliest, most destructive flooding in any of our lifetimes. Many of our eastern Kentucky families lost everything, their homes, their belongings, everything but the clothes on their back. Heartbreakingly, it took 45 of our fellow Kentuckians, each one a child of God, irreplaceable to their families or their communities. The destruction is hard to put into words. We were on the ground immediately, and it was clear that this would be the toughest rebuild I believe that this country has ever seen. But often, I say it happened to the very toughest of people. And while we can never understand the why behind why these events happen, why this trauma and this difficulty and this destruction and this loss of life, we always see God in the response. You know, Mr. Rogers recalled his mother saying, in tough times, look for the helpers. You will always find the people who are helping. And I was reminded by someone who works for one of the Fred Rogers organizations, the next line is, that's where you'll find hope. I've seen helpers, and therefore I've seen hope everywhere that I've looked. We've seen it time and time again. Kentuckians are strong and resilient, but even more, they are compassionate and kind. And during and after the flooding, we saw Kentuckians coming together, neighbors helping neighbors, folks opening their homes and their hearts to those in need. An example of this is our heroic first responders who ran towards danger to save lives. I believe that the emergency response, those first 48 hours, is as good as any emergency response we have ever seen in this country. Members of the Kentucky National Guard, the best guard in the country, and their counterparts in Tennessee and West Virginia, as well as the Kentucky State Police, Fish and Wildlife, and first responders, saved what we believe is an estimate of 1,400 lives. Those are 1,400 people over a span of about 2 days that would not be here with us, but for these heroic actions. Local fire departments from across Kentucky immediately packed up and headed to the region. I still remember in the midst of this tragedy, just 6 months after the tornadoes, getting a call from the mayor of Mayfield telling me that Jeremy Creason, the fire chief, had packed up his ambulance and was headed to Eastern Kentucky. And he wanted her to pass along the message that Eastern Kentucky had been there for Western Kentucky in their time of need. And Western Kentucky was going to show up in the East for those that had been damaged and hurt by the flooding. Members of the Kentucky Emergency Management, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, and more worked around the clock, truly day and night, to stabilize the area. Once again, our Kentucky State Parks opened their doors, offering safe shelter for those displaced. We also activated the Commonwealth Sheltering Program for the area, bringing in much-needed travel trailers, more trailers, and getting there faster than we have ever been able to previously achieve. Because of these efforts, we were able to shelter those in need, provide food, water, and clothes, and begin the promise to fulfill our promise we continue to work on today to rebuild every life and every structure. These areas should come out of this better off. With all the trauma they've been through, it's not enough just to rebuild. We got to do special things in the region. We love the people of Eastern Kentucky. We love this region and what it stands for. And here in Kentucky, we work together to overcome. And I'm proud to say, while much work remains to be done, we've made real progress. Quickly, we set up the Team Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund. As of today, the fund has raised more than $13.2 million from over 41,500 generous donors. We'll get to how those dollars have been spent, fully transparent for anyone and everyone to look at in a minute. But we knew this fund was crucial, especially after our experience in the West. I immediately requested federal aid from the president, and he approved through one of the fastest disaster declarations this country has ever seen. We immediately set up resource centers throughout the region, ensuring our people could get help in person firsthand. And many of these stop services were also available through Team Kentucky to help with identification replacement, through transportation department, through food benefits like SNAP, health services, and more. We began immediate work with the General Assembly, passing a nonpartisan piece of legislation to help our fellow Kentuckians in the East. I was proud to sign into law the $212.7 million Eastern Kentucky State Aid Funding for Emergencies, or the Eastern Kentucky Safe Fund. That included $115 million to the Department of Military Affairs Division of Emergency Management to help local cities, counties, schools, and state agencies on the costs of rebuilding. $45 million to the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet's highway budget to meet matching requirements to secure more federal dollars. $40 million to the Department of Education for rebuilding efforts, transportation, and wraparound services for the school children traumatized by losing everything they had and, in many instances, losing the very school they were attending. And $12.7 million for water and sewer infrastructure projects. These first steps, and that was only a first step, we're going to need more dollars in that fund, have helped us move forward. By the numbers, as of today, more than $281 million in federal funding has gone to Eastern Kentucky to support individuals, families, communities, and businesses. Let's break that down. FEMA has provided nearly $108 million in the private assistance fund to individuals. 408 projects are obligated under the FEMA public assistance funds, totaling over $49.4 million for Eastern Kentucky. The National Flood Insurance Program has closed out more than 400 claims and paid out more than $24 million. The U.S. Small Business Association has provided more than $58.8 million in low-interest disaster loans to Eastern Kentucky homeowners, renters, and businesses. Our Office of Unemployment also assisted with disaster unemployment assistance for folks that obviously couldn't immediately go back to work. They used a virtual platform to partner with organizations to fill disaster employment positions. Through their efforts, more than 200 people in the region were hired to ultimately work on cleanup and other disaster-related services. The team also offered employment assistance, support for the deaf and hard of hearing community in the region, and more through our resource centers. Our Kentucky State Parks opened their doors once again. We directly sheltered 360 individuals in our parks, and then through our travel trailer programs, at one point sheltering over 1,006 individuals, by far a record in the Commonwealth, 382 households. Our CHFS, nearly 4,000 contacts were made to storm survivors by behavioral health providers through community mental health center staff and Kentucky Crisis Counseling team members. This is trying to address the trauma. Maybe one of the first times in the country to recognize the mental health impacts that are immediately thrust on people going through this, and to try to provide services up front. We also assisted over 3,500 older adults and individuals with disabilities and helped replace 650 documents, including birth, death, and marriage certificates, free of charge. As I mentioned earlier, the Team Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund raised more than $13.2 million. The first $450,000 went out to pay for every single funeral so that we could grieve together. And no one had to wait on a FEMA payment a year or 2 years later that might have covered part of it. The fund provided $4 million in immediate relief payments directly to individuals who suffered property damage in the storm. Over $1 million is already committed to rebuilding home and home repairs with nonprofit partners like Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky, Housing Development Alliance, and Homes, Inc. Housing remains the number one need in the area, and to address the need for safe, affordable housing located outside of the floodplain, most of the remaining Team Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund will be used to build homes in our high ground communities. According to FAHI, 311 muckouts, rehabs, and new homes have been completed. That means there are 311 habitable homes, some of which hadn't been built, but the other ones needed work to get people in them, meaning 311 families are already back in them. 3 high ground communities have been announced, one each in Knott, Perry, and Letcher counties. The community projects also include much needed infrastructure. Infrastructure work for these high ground communities are going to help, whether that's Hazard or Perry County's water and sewer system. It's going to help us to modernize a lot of the infrastructure in the region. Infrastructure projects have multiple funding streams, including the Eastern Kentucky SAFE funds, Appalachian Regional Commission grants, and other federal grant funds. This week, I joined Appalachian Regional Commission federal co-chair Gail Manchin to announce $5.3 million to help flood recovery efforts in Letcher and Perry counties. I will also tell you, as of today, just 4 days after we open signups, the ARC conference in Ashland is fully booked. We're going to truly be able to display the best of Kentucky during that conference. The state continues to evaluate additional properties for high ground building, with more announcements expected soon. Once completed, these high ground communities will be home to hundreds of Kentucky families that'll never have to worry about that flooding again. Our transportation department was on the ground immediately after the flooding, reopening and reconnecting roads and water crossings for emergency response efforts. They cleared hundreds of rock and mudslides and downed trees in dangerous conditions. Crews came from all 12 highway districts, all converging on Eastern Kentucky where the need was greatest. These teams also fueled our travel trailer program, hauling and installing hundreds of travel trailers used for shelter. In addition, they set up pop-up offices for renewal licenses, permits, and other credentials. Transportation also led our debris removal and bridge repair. As of today, we've inspected 1,096 state and county bridges and determined 166 need replacement or repair. 81 bridges have been completed. 12 more are being readied for contract letting. 409,000 tons of flood debris were removed from roadsides and more than 600 miles of waterway. And 5,791 tons of debris that couldn't be moved to the roadside were cleaned up through our private property debris removal program. Energy and Environment Cabinet, more than 500 support personnel in the divisions representing forestry, emergency response, energy, abandoned mine lands, and water stepped up to assist. The Division of Water personnel worked closely with each affected drinking and wastewater facility to get services repaired and working as quickly as possible. By September, all systems have been put back in full or partial service, and given there was over $1 billion of damage to water and wastewater systems, that is incredible. We're proud of Team Kentucky, but all of our local officials worked around the clock. All of those local water and sewer crews did amazing work, and others came from counties close and far to help. In fact, the city of Marion, that had been under their own emergency with their water system, sent a couple of their folks to help out in the east. Support was provided for temporary water services, delivery of bottled water, alternative water sources for bathing and laundry. The emergency response team also assumed one of the largest hazardous material response efforts in history. The teams covered more than 315 miles. Like a lot of you, I lean on my faith in times of difficulty. It's the 30th Psalm that says, "Weeping may linger in the evening, but joy comes in the morning." We've certainly been through that tough evening in Eastern Kentucky. But when I'm there, I see homes coming up. I see families moving in. I see major developments getting ready to take place. We see industry looking at these communities. Yeah, I believe we have been through the weeping of the evening, and I think we are going to see the joy of the morning. Our promise continues, Eastern Kentucky. We're there every single day, no matter how long it takes. And in the end, you deserve more than things to be simply rebuilt. You deserve more prosperity. You deserve more safety. And we're going to do this rebuild in a way that brings that to the region. All right, this week we lost a really special Kentuckian. Former state senator Joe Wright was a pivotal leader in Kentucky. He served for years representing the 5th District and held the position of majority floor leader for 12 years. He's a man of faith, a Marine, a member of the Breckinridge County School Board, and a farmer who is most proud of being a farmer. He was awarded numerous honors and recognitions, but he was most proud of the family he and Barbara created together. Joe always prioritized the people of Kentucky. I saw him a couple of months ago. He fought for transparency, and as so many others said time and time again, he was a man of his word. Joe will be greatly missed, but his impact will live on through his kids. I talked to his son the other day, through his granddaughter, who he had with him the last time I saw him and got to talk to the other day. I think she's about ready to be governor, and I think she'll be a great one. Brittany and I are praying for Barbara, their children and grandchildren at this difficult time. And finally, this week's Team Kentucky All-Stars that have gone above and beyond to keep our communities safe. Earlier this week, Mothers Against Drunk Driving honored 3 Kentucky State Police troopers for their outstanding work in combating drunk driving. Every single day in the United States, 28 people die in a car crash that involves a driver who is under the influence. That's 28 families that are torn apart. This equates to more than 1 death every hour of every day in America. Team Kentucky is dedicated to combating these crimes to save lives. So today I want to highlight the work of 3 incredible law enforcement officers in combating drunk driving: Trooper Tyler Bloodworth, Trooper Landon Stewart, and Trooper Eric West. Each of these troopers from Mayfield arrested more than 25 impaired drivers in a single year, removing these dangerous drivers from the road. Thank you to these 3 law enforcement officers for going above and beyond in enforcing DUIs. Because of y'all, Kentuckians are safer. So it's my honor to name them as our Team Kentucky All-Stars. All right. With that, we'll open it up to questions. We'll start with Tom Latek.
Thank you, Governor. And I've got 2. First of all, and they're both disaster related. First of all, when will you be heading to tour the flood areas? And secondly, the state auditor's office has been announced that they're going to do a special examination of both the Eastern and Western Kentucky relief funds, and I wanted to get your reaction.
I will be in Mayfield on Friday, touring the and observing the flooding that occurred. We've been in contact with the local officials. We are hoping the situation does not get worse. It's been getting better. Hoping the rain misses them tonight. With regard to the announced audit, the Team Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund and Western Kentucky Tornado Relief Fund are the most transparent disaster recovery funds that I've ever seen. Each of them is subject to open records. We have produced every single document, every single transaction, not just to the General Assembly, but also multiple members of the press and the public. Anyone can request them. We've testified it's got to be 7 or 8 times in front of the legislature about every single bit of it. We had a law passed that I signed that made it official and set up a regular reporting and recording schedule where we go to the General Assembly. So this is fully transparent. It's fully out there. So then you got to ask why. With all that, with all the testimony that's there, do we suddenly have an announced audit? And that's because we have an election 3 months and a couple of weeks away. Listen, the state auditor has a conflict here. He was at Daniel Cameron's announcement of his lieutenant governor yesterday. I believe that their audit would not meet the auditing standards that are out there that require that you are impartial. We don't see that here. But listen, we'll provide the documents to anybody. Absolutely anyone. Every transaction, every decision, every place a check was mailed, every place that received it. That's what is available not just to the legislature or an auditor, but to each and every Kentuckian. But let me stop and say, to attack something like this for politics is really wrong. It's paid for the funeral of every family we lost in tornadoes and in floods. It provided millions of dollars to people in their time of greatest need. It's rebuilding hundreds of homes that otherwise wouldn't have the funding to rebuild. It helped out farmers in Western Kentucky that lost their granary. These are not tax dollars, yet we were able to ask for them. And through the generosity of people all over the country and the world, we were able to provide services for our people that otherwise would not have been there. Now, this is a model that we ought to be celebrating, not trying to score potential points from. And let me tell you, anybody who got one of those payments, who's moving into one of these homes, ought to be upset that people would bring politics into this. Now, in response to all these natural disasters, I've tried to be there for everyone. I don't care if they're a Democrat or Republican or what. If they've lost their home, if they've lost a family member, if they've lost their business, if their school has been washed out, we should be there for each other. And we should continue to support each other in the days, the weeks, and the years after them. All right, we got Mark Payne on the line.
Thanks, Governor. This is a 2-part question. I wanted to get your thoughts on whether you would be open to repealing or reforming Certificate of Need in Kentucky. And then the second part, a national group called Americans for Prosperity have said they intend to work to repeal Certificate of Need in Kentucky like they have in other states. What are your thoughts on this group weighing in on Certificate of Need in the state?
Well, I believe there's a robust discussion that goes around the Certificate of Need process. Now, it's existed for a long time because some of our providers have to make really large investments to provide the very best healthcare. It may be what it takes to open up a certain specialty in a certain area. And at least the thinking has been for a long time that those investments would not be made if you wouldn't have enough patients that would come in. I certainly think that we ought to listen to everybody out there who are expressing their opinions. To me, what I want is the most access to healthcare. I believe it is a basic human right. It needs to be affordable. And in access, it needs to be in all parts of our state. You shouldn't have to drive 2 hours to get services you need for your family. That's why I'm so excited about the new Pediatric Autism Center in Pikeville and in Prestonsburg. You shouldn't have to take a bus or 2 or 3 to get where you need to go. That's why I'm really excited about the new hospital we're building in the west end of Louisville. So when I look at laws or regulations. To me, it's about where we want to get to. I want to make sure that people can get the services that they need, the very best healthcare, and get it in their region as conveniently as possible for an affordable price. Nobody should ever have to worry about taking their parents or their kids to a doctor when they're sick. Tessa Duvall, Lexington Herald Leader.
Hi, Governor. Thank you. To follow up about the audit that was announced a couple of hours ago, one of the things that the lawmakers who requested this audit took issue with is the lack of an opinion from the Ethics Commission before creating these two funds. I'm curious, why not seek such an opinion from the Ethics Commission? And do you just have a response to those concerns in general?
It's not required under law. The person who is pushing that, it applies to a 501c organization. This isn't one. So that's a false narrative that's being pushed. Tessa, the law doesn't require that opinion. The opinion that's out there is about an entirely different type of fund. Moreover, since it was created, it's now been passed into law. It is fully codified. Listen, again, this is the most transparent fund that's out there. I'm not concerned about an audit. I wasn't concerned about testimony in front of the legislature. I mean, we've testified. I feel it's more than 6 or 7 because we testify in front of the committee that we're officially supposed to report to, and then a bunch of others call us in, but we do it anyways. Why? Because every transaction, every check, every cent is accounted for and where it's been sent. But listen, for somebody who was running for governor that is supporting the other candidate to announce an audit on something like this 3 months and 2 weeks before an election, we all have to admit that's grossly political and we shouldn't be doing it. All right. Thank you all very much. We'll see you next week.